Welcome to the MSL 411, a podcast designed to equip both aspiring and experienced MSLs with the resources they need to level up their career toolkit. The heart of this podcast is to take the same industry knowledge and advice that we share with our own candidates and make it available and accessible to anyone looking for answers. So if you have questions, you've come to the right place. We're here to give you the 411. And without further ado, let's dive right in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the MSL 411 podcast. I am really excited about our episode today. We have a guest on with us. Today's guest is Chad Fellers. If you're not already familiar with Chad, he is a medical affairs leader, and he is someone who brings equal parts strategy, wit, and real-world know-how to every conversation. He's built and led high-performing teams. He has navigated the twists and turns of rare disease and biotech, has worked in respiratory, neuropsychiatry, and now switching to the cardio space, and still somehow makes time to co-host MSL Lead Chronicles, another great podcast. And that's a podcast where he drops the kind of leadership and career insights that you usually get behind closed doors, and he co-hosts that with Mary Morton. I would definitely say Chad is known for his big picture thinking and his no-fluff approach to leadership, as well as just his down-to-earthness. And he definitely has a knack for making complex topics feel like a coffee chat. So we want to welcome Chad to the podcast. Hey, Chad.
Hey, Linda. Thanks so much for having me. And wow, very kind words. Hopefully I can live up to a little bit of that as part of our conversation today.
Well, I wanted to start us off a little bit easy. I had some icebreaker questions just so those who are listening or watching who maybe don't know you quite as well can get a good sense of your personality. We are music lovers here at Symbio. I'm sure you know that.
Yes, the weekly soundtracks. Yes. Yeah. Love them.
You have contributed to that soundtrack once or twice, I know.
Yes.
But for our listeners, if you had to create the go-to Spotify playlist that gets yourself motivated, get yourself going for the day or for the week, what is your number one song that would definitely be on it?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, there's so many of them. I'm a 90s fiend, if you will. I think of Stone Temple Pilots. Some of that would be on my list. Van Halen, Why Can't This Be Love? Or just something with a high driving beat that just really kind of gets me up and going. So I would probably fall back into the 90s and really kind of pick your poison on that.
I'm an 80s girl myself, but I do love the 90s. So I'm right there with you on that. Well, I want to jump right into the topic today because we have so much to talk about, and I definitely want to try to keep us on track. But let's start by talking about your journey and how you ended up in medical affairs, what you love about it, what's kept you in medical affairs all these years.
Sure. So I've been practicing pharmacy for about 25 years. Wow. That sounds like a long time. Yeah, I guess it is. Started in retail, wanted to own my own store, realized relatively quick that insurances and things like that would really kind of limit some of the things I wanted to be able to do from a cost perspective. Quite honestly, I realize now that I was built to be outside of a box. So I was there for about 7 years in different roles. Actually did even store management side, working my way up the corporate ladder with that. Opportunity came along to transition to pharmacy benefit management, so PBM work. So as a clinical account manager, that was really the way that I got exposed to this opportunity within medical affairs, within industry, was through conversations with sales reps in the retail pharmacy. And then how do I leverage and make a way? How do you get experience if you don't have experience? So the PBM route was the way that I thought would be a great path to be able to do that, developing formularies, et cetera. So did that for 3 years and then transitioned to Teva Respiratory and was there for about 3 or 4 years, and then went to a couple of different stops within startup companies, which was a lot of fun in the neuro space prior to transitioning to Biogen, where I led 3 rare disease teams. And then recently, over the past about a little over a year ago, transitioned to Alnylam and a little bit different role. So I went from an MSL to MSL leader to transitioning to director of strategy and operations for medical. So I really kind of hold 2 hats now in this. It's a part chief of staff, if you will, for our VP, as well as strategic thought partner, I guess. So I help with pulling together all the different functions that report to medical affairs within the U.S. to help be able to tell the story of the value of medical affairs. So that's a little bit about me. So I've spent the past 12 to 15 years or so with it, specifically within medical affairs. Why I love it though, I think going back to my first journey, right, to be able to impact a mom with her 2-year-old that had issues coming, how could I be able to make an impact to make them better? Even wanting to come up there at midnight, right? That was kind of my desire. And I think even transitioning into PBM work and then even medical affairs, it's going from more that micro impact, the opportunity to really be able to have a much larger effect on a large population. Rare disease is certainly an area that I enjoy as well too, right? To be able to speak up for those or fight for those that really don't have as strong a voice as others in the general population. So that's my why.
Love that. I was going to ask what pulled you toward the rare disease space, but that sums it up, just being able to help those people that don't have a lot of options out there. Were you always drawn to the strategy aspect, or was that just kind of happenstance that you landed yourself in a role? I know a lot of folks are really interested in getting into strategy, but what pulled you towards that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I'll take it back to when I made the transition in Walgreens from pharmacy manager to the store side. The district manager, when I was working alongside him, I was actually filling in for the pharmacy supervisor who was out on leave, and I was working in partnership with him. And he said, Chad, you don't see black and white, you see shades of gray. And not necessarily in an ethical, or certainly not an ethical sense, but it's just being able to think outside the box, see the big picture. And I'm a big picture person. The details, which are very important, and I can do that, that doesn't bring me a lot of energy. Being able to tell and put things together in unique ways is something that's always driven. So that's what in the past, I've had a lot of ideas as an MSL director, et cetera. And sometimes those are limitations or limits rather of how far you can make shifts that impact the entire medical affairs organization. So this was just an opportunity to really kind of dip my toe in that. And I'm thankful to work alongside an amazing leader who gives me license to dare to be different, the freedom to fail in ways too. So that's what drew me to this type of role.
So current role withstanding. So let's take that off the table, the Director, U.S. Strategy and Operations. What has been one of your favorite stops along your career path? Because you worked at large pharma, small pharma, you've worked in a couple of different therapeutic areas, MSL, people leader. What's been your favorite?
I think each one have their unique there's different aspects of each one that I've really enjoyed, if I'm being honest. I think if I had to pick one, it would probably have been my time at Harmony Biosciences. I think there's a debate between me and another former MSL there of what employee number we were. I think I was employee number 23 there. So actually going in and interviewing and literally seeing cardboard boxes as you open the front door, right? So that kind of thing. So getting to build something from the ground up, and then the product is done really well and can say that I had a hand in it. And then part of that was getting to honestly work along. And that's where I got to really get to know you and the folks at Symbio as far as getting to build out MSL team. So I helped with when we doubled in size. I onboarded the new MSLs and then led them. And so really just seeing them thrive, and just that was my first taste. While I'd managed before, I think that was my first taste of truly leading. And I think that's a unique concept for many. I think there's definitely a difference between leadership and management. So I would say that's probably the most rewarding experience that I've had to date.
Well, you make a really great point about there being a difference between leadership and management. And I think that was my first experience with you, Chad, was with that Harmony build out and being able to work with you in the leadership role. And, we at Symbio, our team, we get the privilege of picking and choosing the leaders that we get to work with. We love, love, love getting to work with dynamic leaders that people are excited to go to work for. And that's definitely what comes to mind when I think of that time that you were talking about at Harmony. And we know that, you've built great teams, you have been a wonderful people leader, but what does being a people leader mean to you? What is that difference between managing people and then being a people leader? What does that mean to you?
It's caring about people first, right? I think the reality is in corporate America, there's this drive for performance and living above the bar and maintaining that. And I think that the reality is we've lost the humanistic approach, if you will. I mean, you would know as much as anyone when you think about turnover rate. The frequency of changing jobs, specifically within field medical, is very, I mean, I would say 3 years is a lifetime in many cases, right? Before there's what's new, or I remember even in the COVID space, right? When new onboards, MSLs, after a year in that role, they're like, I'm ready to do something different, right? I heard that across industry. What I would say is part of that's because people don't feel valued. And so a people leader is someone that cares about the people more than the process. The process will take care of itself if you really invest and truly show that you care. One example would be, I guess one of the examples, like even in interviews, right? There would be times where a candidate would say, what's missing from your team that you're looking for that I can plug into? And I think in ways that's a great question to ask, but I don't like looking at a resume and seeing experience, oh, they were the Viva lead. Well, just because they were the Viva lead doesn't mean they want to do that in this coming role, right? Maybe their gifting is something that I want to be able to explore that with them and put them in the best light to thrive, right? And so I think if you have that type of approach, people are committed to you as much as, and the other things that you can't control that may go on with your organization become less as impactful to you because you become passionate with the people that you're working alongside. So I would say that is the biggest difference between a manager and a people leader.
Yeah. And I think being able to read the people on your team and see their skills, I'm myself am big into the personality test world.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so fascinated by that stuff, but not everybody's a golden retriever. Not everybody's, INFP, or,
That's right.
not everybody's an Enneagram 1, or, just whatever it is. I mean, I think that's one thing that you've been good at, is finding out what people's strengths are and being able to utilize that in the team, and being empathetic towards what they want to do in their career, not just what they're able to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people, instead of trying to drive them to exceed expectations, there's ways to facilitate that. If you show you care, if you show you're invested, if you show that for their long term, and I will literally say that in interviews or even in conversations, like, I want you to know I care more about you and your long term, because I realize what the environment is within industry, right? People come and go, but I want to try. My goal is to help try to make a legacy, or that to be part of my legacy is helping, and which is one of the reasons why we decided to start MSL Lead Chronicles, right? Just to pay that forward, controlling what we can control.
So what would the success of your team look like beyond just hitting metrics or hitting numbers? For you, what is a successful MSL team?
That's that is a good question. I think it's one that impact can be felt beyond the current team, to see growth and acknowledgement, and then even opportunities that come outside of current roles in different unique positions. I can think of a couple back to that time at Harmony. I had 3 on my team that started as MSLs. One went into clinical development, completely different role. One went into government affairs, and then one became a medical director as well too, right? So I think it's those things don't happen if others don't see the impact that you can make, and it goes beyond just how many widgets are moved or how many activity. Now, that said, I think there's been advancements over the last 5 or so years, or really the last 2 or 3 specific, that AI platforms and things like that can shift the type of metrics that you were reporting on as well too, right? So more of a qualitative component. And so that way, the companies can actually see and feel the impact in a more tangible way too. So yes, metrics, there's much more than just beyond activity, but being able to highlight some of those things that really move the needle, I think that's what success looks like, is how can we move the needle, whether it's in our region, whether it's supporting others, creating access to no access institutions, helping our sales colleagues be able to break the ice or break the barriers. Those types of things are wins that in my book would be examples of success.
Well, I want to jump back into something you touched on, leading through COVID. And we all know COVID changed medical affairs in so many ways, everything going virtual. And now it's kind of making that gradual comeback to in person. A lot of roles are going back into headquarters and in person and seeing those KOLs face to face. How has being in the leadership role over all that and just in your time as a leader, how have leaders had to adapt today versus 10 years ago or through COVID?
Well, so I think certainly COVID was one of the instigators. I think it's being more flexible. I remember the days of anybody in medical affairs on conference calls or video calls would never go on video. So like that would just be one small example of how things have had to shift over the past 10 years. I do think also there's a generational shift too, as that we have to think about, as far as when you think about this current generation, what values they hold are somewhat different than other generations. It's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just a difference type of thing. And so as leaders, having to be able to flex with not only the personality differences that are on your team, but possibly even generational differences and what matters and how do you merge those together. So leaders have to be adaptable in that regard. So I've seen the great leaders can really demonstrate some of those things. How do you make sure people feel valued in their job? That is just as important as a salary or a salary raise or a title sometimes as well too, right? So being able to understand those types of things and be able to flex versus the style that was currently there, I think for me, I've had to learn in this new, more remote space where travel has become less frequent because of the other type of technology. Now, obviously, it's starting to shift back a little bit, but being respectful of people's time, I think the calendars now, the downside of all remote work is your calendar can now become full of meetings, and they could be from 8 to 5. Well, when are you supposed to do the rest of your actual job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being mindful of that, I think that's been a shift that's had to happen, and is still needing to happen in many circumstances. So those would be a few ways I think that the shift is continuing to take place, especially compared to where it was 10 years ago.
We're seeing a lot of people who are newer in the industry that are learning the way things used to be done, MSL wise. And so some of them, the return to in-person stuff is a little bit new and a little bit of a uphill battle.
It does require flexibility. I think also it's setting the right expectations with your team as well too in this shift, and the reasons why. And I think that goes back to being an effective people leader, is being able to communicate the reasons for why you're asking people to commit to do something or to do things a little bit different. And so if that is not communicated well, that can only lead to frustration, which can lead to transitions off the team, et cetera, right? Or just unhappiness and lack of maximizing the impact that you can have as a team.
Well, I want to make sure we cover also the other side of your role besides the people leading aspect. And of course, that's the strategy. Strategy is such a buzzword these days, and a lot of people are interested in getting into that, but maybe don't understand the fullness of what all that entails. You've built teams from scratch. You've built strategy from scratch. So when you're starting a strategy or even building a team from scratch, where do you start? Where do you even begin on that?
You have to have a clear vision of what the objective is that your company is trying to achieve. We could say rare as an example. If it's a new first product to market for a certain disease state or therapy, Is there an educational component? It's like, okay, so what is it going to need to bring an awareness beyond just one or two centers in the US to really where it's more of a regional type of focus? Okay, how do we even think about maximizing that if you only have 6 MSLs? So it's really understanding kind of where the company is, where they want to go, and then what are the steps to get there? And then what is a realistic expectation and what's not. Once you figure out where they want to go, and it's figuring out how to do that and the best way to leverage what tools are needed, et cetera. There's an operational components, but it goes way beyond just the day in, day out tactics. I think oftentimes, and again, I think that's one of the things that I often communicate is people get put in these leadership roles because that's the natural progression. You blow it out as an individual contributor. You exceed expectations. You see 30% more people and make impact with your KOLs out in the field. But then the thought is the company says, well, hey, they did this, so why don't they lead a team to do this as well too? And the reality is they're two separate skill sets, right? So I would say the same thing with tactics and being a great tactician, and then being able to take that hat off and quit being a doer and quit fishing and teach people how to fish, right? Mm-hmm. I think fishing for others instead of teaching people how to fish for themselves. So I would say that's the biggest thing with strategy is being able to step back and look at a bigger picture and then figure out, okay, what are the pieces that need to come into place to actually move these things move forward. And so that's been a learning experience for me. And again, I think it goes back to the whole idea of transitioning from a manager type of mindset to a leadership type of mindset. I was a manager all of those years in retail. I was a manager really in the PBM space as well too. I think it was the whole switch to this servant leadership mindset, really that started at my time with PharmD, that I actually saw a major difference that started happening in the performance of the team, with a strategy, with myself as well too. I was able to give myself space to think about how to pull those types of things through.
So what advice would you give to maybe someone who's a couple of years behind you, maybe eyeing that strategy role, who maybe needs to see the bigger picture of what's involved? What advice would you give somebody maybe circling that type of role?
So I think it's a great question. I think it's having a plan with your current leader. And what I mean by that is getting exposure to other parts of the business. Hey, so-and-so, or hey, Linda, I think I really enjoy being an MSL as it stands right now. I think one of the things I really am considering down the road is more of a strategy type of position, but I'm not really sure. I think one of the things I need to better understand is how the sausage is made, so to speak, with a medical director office or clinical development, or this. Is there a way that what are your thoughts about me shadowing for a month or 2 weeks or whatever that looks like, right? That's what's equipped me the most to be able to do my job, as being able to extract different experiences across different types of roles to help shape the role that I'm currently in. Whether it was my first actual role before an MSL was working with BI. I don't know if you remember the position. It was a clinical science consultant. Well, that was a glorified term. It's no longer there, so I can say it. It's glorified sales rep, in the sense of the idea was to bring disease state education locally to grow the pie of awareness of COPD. And then the sales team would go in and fight between Advair and Spiriva, right? That was at the time. But my experience of driving 3 hours for a lunch and then getting 5 minutes in an office helped me understand and appreciate the value that my sales colleagues had to walk through every day. And I was like, I'm a doctor. Why am I being treated this way? It made me think at the humanistic level as well too. So when I stepped into Teva, I followed somebody that was very separate from commercial, didn't want to talk to them. Almost, it was just not very healthy. And I was a star there because I applied those things that I learned from my previous experience and helped supported my team around me across the region, and it just set things up for success, right? So thinking about the different pieces and how do you apply those. So it's asking for those opportunities to learn, but then it's also integrating your current experience as well too. I mean, think about this, Linda, right? It's like even those trying to break in as an MSL, what do you do as a recruiter, or what do they do in their resume? They think about the experiences that are translatable skills, right? So I think it's the same thing, other than just putting it on a piece of paper. It's figuring out how you can apply those types of things in the current role that you're in.
Right. All the different building blocks of your
Yes.
career that, or the different tapestry of your career basically, but how it all kind of weaves together and stacks on top of things and builds and adds to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a perfect analogy of relating that into the aspiring MSL and how they are able to take their experience and make it relatable and pull out the relevant parts. But yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and don't downplay the things that you've been in, the opportunities you've been in as well too. Think about it as, I don't know if a rug is the best example or not, but like you see in the back, on the back side of the rug, it looks ugly, like all these knots and things like that turn around. But if you'll actually stop and see how it can actually
Hmm.
shape and the output that can come based on those experiences when you turn it over, right? It could be this beautiful masterpiece that no one else has. It could be your very own, that you can create your own signature. So anyway, maybe that's a little too deep. I don't know, but I like to make things pretty simple sometimes.
No, I like it. I'm a visual person, so the talking about tapestries and rugs and all that, like, you're right. You're speaking my language.
Okay, all right, good.
Well, hey, this is perfect into our next question, but how do you keep things light and human in a world that can take itself way too seriously? We know medical affairs is very serious, and rightly so. We're dealing with heavy topics, but you do bring that human side of the role. So I wanted to see how you manage to keep things light and human.
So, couple of different ways that I can think of that. I mean, it's one thing for your boss to say, "Hey, how was your weekend?" or "Hey, how are you doing?" when in passing, but not really intentional and really trying to understand how you're really doing. It's more of, "Hey, this is a quick pleasantry. Now let's get down to business." I think one of the things I do is I'm very intentional to ask follow-up questions or to remember things, just like if you're an MSL in the field and you're wanting to be memorable with a KOL and you have one or two shots. I mean, you think about, maybe it's a picture that's on their wall that you say something about, or you make connections, right? So I think connections are the first thing, is on a humanistic level, and being authentic about it as well too. So that's one, and then it's trying to find ways to play hard and celebrate as well too, because life is too short. I mean, it really is. So I think one of the biggest things, Linda, is a job is not who I am, it's what I do, right? I
Mhm.
think that so many times our identity gets caught up in those types of things, and being able to step back. So we try to figure out ways to play, to celebrate success, to lift others up. And one example would be, for a team, like it's, "Hey, I don't want to know what you did. Share something that your teammate did that helped make you be successful in the field," right? So it's one of those things of, it became contagious of, "Hey, I want to help somebody else," right? Because that's what the expectation is, and that's what people are looking for. They're not looking for me to be the best of the best and trying to be competitive against my team. Doing small things like celebrating those types of things, doing video scavenger hunts. We did an ice bar one year out in Vegas for MSL Society, types of things. Having fun, playing hard at times, as much as you want people to work hard. So those are some of the small things that I try to do.
When stuff gets a little intense for you personally, what do you do to just hit reset for yourself?
Whew. One of the things I've started to do is to start walking. I think that's been one of the, taking long walks. I think, for me, there's a lot of bilateral stimulation that comes with that, and it allows me to, clear my head. I think the reality is, nowadays when we have this that's in our hand, it's always going off, or there's always notifications, or we're always glued to this. And so just being able to take my eyes from looking down or looking straight ahead to looking up, I think has been one of the ways that I try to reset. It actually helps me get out of fight and flight and puts me back into just more of where I can self-regulate and then be able to figure out a path to move forward.
I love that. And it's actually something I've been trying to be more intentional about myself, taking walks. But here in Texas, it's
It's
quite warm.
hot.
It's hot. So
It's hot.
it'll maybe be, if I'm in the office, let me just walk away and take a lap around the building outside, get some sunlight. And as soon as it starts getting too
Yeah,
hot and sweaty, I'll go back inside. Or if I'm working from home, maybe getting on the treadmill or just going out in the backyard and sitting on the
that's right.
patio, something like that. But I wholeheartedly agree with that. Taking time away from screens, from the phone, just tuning that out. And there's something about nature, really,
Yeah,
that
I think so too.
is refreshing. But yeah, I love that. Well, I do have a couple of rapid fire. I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time, but I have a lightning round here that I wanted to go through with you. First, best leadership advice you've ever gotten.
Ooh, communication style is dependent on the level of audience that you're engaging, whether it's engaging VP level versus team level versus you have to be able to adapt to those types of things. I think that was something that Chimoma actually taught me to be able to demonstrate value and to advocate for your team. You have to be able to adjust your style to the audience that you have. And that even includes from inside your company, not just to the different type of provider types, right? So I think
Yeah.
that was definitely one that stands out.
Nice. Last question. You already gave us a great quote, but is there a tool or anything that has helped you in your path to show up better as a leader?
I think it's I want to model servant leadership. I think that that's the secret to success, and people use that as a phrase oftentimes, but don't really understand that. So when I think about mindset, what servant leadership means, it means assuming positive intent. It's being a servant leader is seeking to understand would be another thing. Believing the best in those that you're engaging, right, and then being team centric. Those are the things that bubble up for me when I think about servant leadership that really helps set the framework for how I want to engage those that I'm meeting with, whether it's in cross-functional meetings, whether it's with my own team or with its stakeholders that are outside of the company. So is having that servant leadership mindset.
Well, I love it. And this has been such a great episode. And thank you so much for giving up your time today to join us and just share your insights. If you're watching or listening and have any questions about leadership, strategy, anything that we've touched on today, there is a link in the show notes below where you can just zip us over a question or, feel free to look Chad up on LinkedIn. He is there. Or reach out to us with any questions you might have or any topics that you'd like to see us cover in the near future that are related to this. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be back again with some new episodes, kind of kicking off our next season. And thank you again, Chad, for joining us. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Linda. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to share the link, let your friends know, and of course, connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you want more information on today's topic, please feel free to reach out. Be sure to check back soon as we continue to explore the topics that matter most to you in medical affairs.